The ancient gears of the world grind slowly and relentlessly, as if maintaining a rhythm only they comprehend. It was under such a sky of rhythmic ennui that Matthew Darrow sat, ensconced in his worn leather chair, amidst a maelstrom of scattered files, newspaper clippings, and the faded memories they entombed. Matthew, with his weather-beaten face and kindly eyes, found solace in the sacred silence of his office, the steady drum of rain on the windowpane his only companion. As he sipped on his ink-black coffee, the bitterness was not a sting, but a comforting reminder of the tangibility of his world. A world that existed primarily in grays and blues, where he carefully untangled knots of human folly and the mysteries they spawned. The door to his office creaked open and, as if on cue, a faint gust of wind rustled the stacked papers on his desk, bringing with it an echo of an unattended past. It was a case file, a thin veneer of dust blanketing the cover, as if attempting to hide the ominous secrets lurking beneath. "The Wellington Anomaly," he read aloud, the words hanging heavily in the hushed silence. "A crypt, an unknown life form, a family legacy lost to time," he muttered, fingers grazing over the papers that bore the weight of Norwalk's unspeakable mystery. The grating hum of the town bus shook Matthew from his musings. His reflection in the window bore a man, not defined by his graying hair, but by his gaze, gentle yet determined, a vestige of countless battles against the shadows of uncertainty. His history bore an insatiable thirst for truth, an unspoken oath birthed from a childhood fear of being lost and a desperate longing to belong. His thoughts traced the footsteps of a younger version of himself, lost and frightened in a vast, faceless wilderness. Just as he'd searched for a way out then, he now sought to illuminate the dark corners of his world. It was a quest for purpose, a quest for meaning, a quest that invariably led him to the doorsteps of Norwalk. The quaint Connecticut town seemed draped in a shroud of unending twilight. It bore the weight of the Wellington family crypt, the epicenter of whispers that wound through the winding lanes and into the hushed tones of the townsfolk. Its mere existence seemed to challenge the mundane reality they clung to, presenting a puzzle that yearned to be solved. As the day waned into a premature dusk, he packed his satchel, his heart echoing the rhythmic thrum of the rain. "I am no stranger to the labyrinth," he whispered to his reflection, his voice reverberating through the quietude of his office. In the distance, the bus to Norwalk idled, its engines hum a siren song that beckoned him to embark on his next journey. With one last lingering look at his sanctuary, he stepped into the yawning night, his figure swallowed by the spectral gloom. The quaint town of Norwalk awoke under a sky of washed-out gray. A specter of melancholy hung heavy over its cobblestone streets, the pallid morning light casting long, wistful shadows over its sleep-soaked edifices. The bus coughed its last breath, the tired old beast announcing its arrival as it deposited Matthew onto the time-worn stones of the town center. A figure of solitude amongst the awakening stirrings of the town, he watched the sun struggle against the oppressive cloud cover, the faint light bouncing off the waterlogged cobblestones. His feet were unfamiliar with the worn paths, yet his heart reverberated with an eerie sense of déjà vu, as though he had retraced steps from a forgotten past. He moved with purpose, his gaze intent on the town's aging structures, their decrepit facades whispering tales of faded glory. His arrival had not gone unnoticed. Curious eyes peered from behind draped curtains, their wary expressions betraying the town's undercurrent of unease. In the town's only diner, he slipped onto a vacant bar stool, the hushed murmur of conversation circling him like a cautious vulture. He found himself conversing with the wrinkled barkeep, whose eyes held a reservoir of stories yet untold. "The Wellington Crypt," Matthew ventured, his tone intentionally casual, as if discussing the weather. The barkeep stilled, the clink of glasses abruptly silenced. He wiped his hands on his apron, eyes lingering on the worn wood of the bar. "Now that's a tale I haven't heard in a while," he murmured, a shadow of unease passing over his lined face. He began spinning his tale, each word intertwining with the next, painting a picture of a crypt shrouded in mystery and an enigma that seemed to grow with each passing generation. "The Wellington family was once a proud lineage," he spoke, a pillar of the community that had crumbled into obscurity, leaving behind only the crypt and its inexplicable resident. Matthew listened, his eyes reflecting the muted light that streamed through the stained window, illuminating the drifting motes of dust. His mind absorbed the information, piecing together fragments of a puzzle that seemed to reach beyond the limits of human understanding. After leaving the diner, he felt the weight of Norwalk's silence, its stillness echoing his memories of being lost in the wilderness of his youth. It was a silence that swallowed the world, punctuated only by the crunch of his boots against the gravel path that led to the crypt. The Wellington crypt loomed in the distance, an unwelcome monument against the backdrop of dreary skies and desolate fields. It was an edifice that seemed to whisper of forgotten sins and buried truths, its aura of desolation extending to the confines of the town. He stood at the crypt's entrance, the echo of the barkeep's tale still lingering in his mind. The air seemed to grow denser, the murmuring wind carrying the crypt's secret whispers. He sensed the labyrinth he was about to delve into, the unspoken dread of his childhood trauma resurfacing like a ghost from the depths. "Whispers of the forgotten," he murmured, his gaze unwavering as he faced the crypt. The last vestiges of daylight receded, leaving behind a world swallowed by shadows. A gust of wind howled through the crypt's entrance, carrying with it an anticipation of the horrors yet to unfold. Matthew's world contracted to the constrictive stone corridors of the crypt, the damp air heavy with the musk of ages past. His flashlight cut through the oppressive darkness, its feeble rays ricocheting off the ancient stone and illuminating his descent into the belly of the mystery. As he delved deeper, the crypt revealed subtle traces of recent activity. A whiff of burnt incense lingered in the stale air, its ethereal scent whispering tales of clandestine rituals. Matthew paused, crouching to inspect a small pile of fresh wax drippings, their stark whiteness an anomaly in the shadow-ridden crypt. As he moved deeper, he noticed the faint crimson chalk markings on the wall, like malignant tendrils creeping through the crypt's veins. His fingers traced over the cryptic symbols, their cold touch like an echo of a forgotten language. They were patterns of a clandestine existence, the shadows in the chalice that the crypt harbored. Upon exiting the crypt, he found himself in the heart of the quiet town once more. Its innocuous facade was a stark contrast to the crypt's grim secrets, a dichotomy that played on his nerves. He sought out the local historian, a woman named Judith, who dwelt in a Victorian house teeming with archival paraphernalia. Judith, a skeletal figure in the annals of the past, peered at him from behind thick glasses, her wrinkled face creasing into a maze of worry lines as he mentioned the crypt. The quietude of her cluttered study became heavy with unspoken tension, their conversation punctuated by the distant tolling of a church bell. "The Wellingtons," she began, her voice wavering like a ghost of a forgotten melody, "once pillars of Norwalk, now fallen into shadows. It's said they dabbled in unseen realms." Her gnarled fingers trembled as she handled an aged document, its parchment paper singing of antiquity. The revelations from Judith and the disconcerting findings within the crypt melded into a grotesque tapestry in Matthew's mind. The Wellingtons, the crypt, the cult-like symbols, they were not mere fragments of separate narratives, but pieces of an insidious puzzle. A shadowy waltz of power and fear was being choreographed in the crypt's silent halls. A feeling of dread settled over him, his childhood fear of being lost resurfacing amidst the crypt's labyrinthine stone corridors. As he descended deeper, he couldn't shake off the sensation of being watched. A presence seemed to linger in the crypt's shadowy recesses, unseen yet palpable. An inexplicable magnetism propelled Matthew deeper into the crypt's unfathomable depths, each step echoing through the ancient passageways. His world was illuminated by the flashlight's hesitant beam, his journey accompanied by the quiet, unsettling whispers of unseen entities. The air was saturated with dread, his senses heightened to a pitch beyond the ordinary, a bitter reminder of his solitary venture into the unknown. His light danced on a peculiar symbol etched on the crypt's stone wall, an arcane pattern that seemed to echo the blood-red chalk markings he had previously encountered. The symbol throbbed with an eldritch energy, its aura akin to an unseen heartbeat. It was a cipher that belonged to the alien realm, a revelation that sent shivers down his spine. This uncanny discovery set his mind alight with questions, his instincts sensing the malevolent force that seemed to coil around the crypt's air. The Wellingtons and their shadowed past were now taking a disturbing form, the pieces of the cryptic puzzle shifting into a harrowing image. Returning to the surface world, Matthew found himself visiting the barkeep again, their conversations becoming an unlikely solace amidst the escalating enigma. The air was thick with the aroma of aging wood and anticipation. His inquiries of the Wellington family met with hushed whispers and evasive glances. Amongst the muffled murmurs and veiled implications, the barkeep offered a piece of information that sent a jolt of realization through him. "The Wellingtons," he intoned, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "They were involved in something otherworldly. Rumor has it their wealth came from something unearthly." His investigations led him back to the crypt, armed with newfound knowledge and an unsettling revelation. The crypt now seemed to him a Pandora's box of cosmic horror, the darkness within housing unspeakable truths. As he ventured deeper, his senses vibrated with an unseen frequency. A cold breeze swept through the crypt, the chilling wind whispering of a force beyond human comprehension. His heart pounded in sync with the crypt's alien rhythm, a symphony of cosmic terror echoing in the dark. The arcane symbol, once etched on cold stone, now stared back at him from a monumental door, its looming presence a harbinger of the dread within. With a final glance at the familiar world behind him, he pushed open the door, stepping over the threshold into the unknown. What he saw was an unholy sanctuary of the cult that lay hidden within the depths of the crypt. The air thrummed with an unnerving energy, the darkened chamber littered with remnants of grotesque rituals and otherworldly artifacts, the residue of the Wellingtons' unspeakable pact. In the middle of the chamber, an object of alien design pulsated with an unsettling aura, its existence defying earthly constraints. It was a physical manifestation of the unknown lifeform, a product of an ancient covenant between the Wellingtons and the unseen realms of the cosmos. The unspeakable revelation sent a shiver of terror and fascination through him, the enormity of the cosmic horror unveiling itself in this forgotten crypt. The labyrinthine crypt of Norwalk had unveiled its horrific secret to Matthew, the pulsating alien entity presenting a stark antithesis to his understanding of reality. He stood transfixed, the alien light casting his shadow upon the crypt's ancient walls, the silence penetrated only by the throbbing pulse of the cosmic horror. A strange feeling of familiarity washed over him, a disconcerting sense of déjà vu from his childhood ordeal of being lost. Only this time, the labyrinth was not a wilderness, but a crypt housing an unknown life form, and the abyss, a cosmic terror that stared back at him from the heart of Norwalk. A disturbing clarity gripped him. The Wellingtons had delved into the cosmos's unfathomable depths, drawn by an insatiable curiosity, only to be consumed by its incomprehensible might. The cosmic horror was their legacy, their cryptic symbols a testament to their monstrous pact. Haunted by the alien presence, he ventured back to the town, his mind swirling with a maelstrom of cosmic revelations. The world above seemed eerily mundane compared to the labyrinthine crypt's chilling reality, a canvas painted in shades of normalcy under the abyss's looming shadow. His encounters with the townsfolk were laced with an unsettling knowledge that bound them together. The quiet barkeep, the elderly historian, the whispered tales of the Wellingtons. They were, knowingly or not, pieces of a grand, horrifying puzzle, pawns in a cosmic chess game. Yet, amidst all that, Matthew felt an empowering surge of determination, an urge to break the cycle, to bring an end to the cosmic horror that lurked beneath Norwalk. It was a testament to his open-minded spirit, his childhood trauma turning into a beacon guiding him through the unknown. He returned to the crypt for a final confrontation. He stood before the alien entity, its pulsating rhythm echoing his resolute heartbeat. The cosmic horror stared back, its silent abyss seeming to question his audacity to challenge the unfathomable. But his resolve did not waver. It was a silent declaration of a human spirit standing against the might of the cosmos, a beacon against the engulfing abyss. The crypt began to shudder, its ancient stones resonating with the cosmic entity's pulse. A whirlwind of chaotic energy surged around him, a testament to the impending cosmic convergence. It was a sight of terror and beauty, the crypt a canvas upon which the monstrous pact of the Wellingtons was depicted. He took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. He held out his hand, an ordinary man standing firm against an extraordinary terror, marking his place in the annals of cosmic horror. His spirit became a beacon in the abyss, a testament to humanity's relentless will against the incomprehensible might of the cosmos. In the end, it was an act of defiance that sealed his victory, his courage resonating stronger than the throbbing pulse of the entity. The crypt trembled one last time, the labyrinth closing in on itself, the abyss receding into silence. The final echoes of the confrontation faded, leaving behind an ordinary crypt in an ordinary town. Matthew emerged from the labyrinth, his silhouette etched against the rising sun. The cosmic horror was no more, its memory trapped within the stone walls of the crypt. A firmament of gray clouded the late afternoon sky over Morgan's dilapidated manor, the ancestral abode standing as a bastion of his storm-scarred past. The house, much like its inhabitant, had endured the ruthless gnashing of time, weathered and proud. Within its shadowed confines, Detective Morgan rested, surrounded by the whispers of antiquated furniture, echo of ancient cases solved, and the resonant silence of solitude. Morgan had dedicated his years to the pursuit of truth, a warrior against the tempest of mysteries. Now retired, his days were punctuated by the ticking of a grandfather clock, a morose companion that echoed the rhythmic chime of passing time. Each tick-tick whispered of a past filled with tumult and trauma. The relentless fury of a long-forgotten tornado, its wrathful roars still echoed in his dreams. Those dreams, a recollection of a twisted dance between man and nature, fueled his unwavering desire to build a haven of safety, a world swaddled against unforeseen horrors. A sudden thud disturbed the lamenting hush of the manor. The mail slot on the front door had clattered open. A rather heavy envelope tumbled in, making its presence known. Gingerly, he picked up the bundle, his roughened fingertips gliding over the seal. His eyes widened slightly as he surveyed the contents. A series of newspaper clippings, photos, and hastily scribbled notes, all pointing to an uncanny pattern of events in Danbury, Connecticut. The events seemed to revolve around an elite school, one that catered to the city's affluent families. Peculiar stories had started to breed in its hallowed hallways. Children speaking in tongues, odd symbols etched in classrooms, and strange behavior in those who were otherwise sound of mind. He sat back in his worn leather chair, his steely eyes flickering with intrigue. He dismissed it as the extravagant antics of the wealthy, yet an undercurrent of uncertainty tugged at his seasoned intuition. His loyal nature didn't permit him to ignore a potential threat, his past tragedies motivating him to safeguard others from harm's reach. He knew he had to venture into this mystery, even if it meant stepping out of his cocoon of solitude and into the maw of the unknown. The following day, with a satchel of essentials and the mystery-laden envelope, he boarded the morning train to Danbury. As the landscape whisked by, a sense of unease knotted his stomach. His reflection in the windows seemed to whisper of the impending anomaly, his eyes mirroring the storm that once scarred his life. As the train screeched to a halt, the quaint yet surreal town of Danbury unfurled before his eyes. Victorian architecture interlaced with modern constructions sketched a paradoxical horizon, housing an air of discomfort that throbbed in his pulse. He took a moment to steady himself before stepping onto the platform, the cool breeze whispering of a mystery that lay shrouded in the town's bosom. The school was nestled on a hill overlooking the town, a manor of pristine stone and foreboding charm. It bore a resemblance to the spectral silhouette of his own home, a mirror that rekindled memories he had fought to keep at bay. Unfazed, he began his exploration of the uncanny labyrinth, a seemingly innocuous world tainted with an undertow of strangeness. His first port of call was the school's courtyard. As he surveyed the scene, the underlying oddity began to reveal itself. The children ran in peculiar spirals, their laughter echoing in eerie harmonics. A group of teachers stood in cryptic formation, discussing in hushed tones, pausing abruptly when he approached. In a bid to dispel his growing paranoia, Morgan engaged in conversation with the teachers, probing them subtly about the rumors. Their guarded responses and elusive smiles painted a stone wall of silence that provoked more questions than answers. Their dialogues were layered with abstract references, cryptic phrases, and allusions to an impending celestial event. All these quirks, seemingly innocent on their own, combined to shape an ominous fresco of unease. Over the subsequent days, he tried to infiltrate deeper into the fabric of the town. He frequented local diners, bookshops, and parks, hoping to find a thread that would unravel the puzzle. Despite the mundane conversations and normalcy, an alienating disconnect permeated every interaction. The townsfolk maintained a detached camaraderie, often exchanging words that carried more weight than their simple meanings. The town's sleep was disturbed by peculiar dreams. He overheard townsfolk muttering about these nocturnal disturbances, their words spilling with fear, fascination, and anticipation. Morgan himself was not immune. His nights were punctuated by inexplicable nightmares of a cosmic tide, a dance of celestial bodies, and whispers of a distant alien tongue. It was an experience that transcended the realm of dreams, nudging the periphery of his sanity. One night, as he strolled down a less frequented path, he saw a gathering of Danbury's elite in an obscure garden. Underneath the glistening stars, the wealthy congregated, their hushed whispers melding with the rustling leaves, their faces reflecting an unnatural fervor. Intrigued yet apprehensive, he withdrew to the shadows, a silent observer to the ritualistic conclave. This gathering was the missing piece that connected the unearthly dots. The hints of an alien presence, the cryptic references, the abnormal behaviors, all culminated into a shocking revelation. The town was entrapped in a cosmic puppet show, the strings being pulled by a presence far beyond human comprehension. With the veils of uncertainty parting, the Danbury mystery deepened its roots into Morgan's consciousness. The dreamlike town transformed into a theater of cryptic performances, each act fueled by an interstellar puppeteer. The early morning sun cast long, lurking shadows, reminding him of his purpose: to reveal the truth and shield the innocent from a reality that threatened to contort beyond comprehension. The school's grand clock tower stood ominously against the morning sun. Its once comforting toll now resounded with an uncanny rhythm, as if each chime marked the descent of Danbury into an abyss of unknown depths. He approached the gathering of wealthy individuals he had spied upon, their faces a mask of refined cordiality, hiding an alien zeal. Ever the skilled conversationalist, he tried to extract insights, weaving in inquiries amongst harmless banter. Despite their rigid demeanor, he could sense their excitement about the upcoming celestial event. The anticipation was almost palpable, a malignant energy that pulsed in rhythm with the alien rhythm of the clock tower. As the day melted into night, he visited the school once again, the empty hallways echoing with the whispers of unsaid secrets. He stumbled upon a hidden room filled with symbols etched onto the walls, their otherworldly glow casting an eerie pallor. The symbols seemed to pulsate, an alien heartbeat that resonated with the subconscious rhythm running through Danbury. It was there that he discovered the terrifying truth. The wealthy patrons, in their pursuit of an enlightened dawn, had become conduits for an alien species. These beings promised a new cosmic dawn, a promise that resonated with the patron's desire for novelty and power. But as his old eyes scanned the arcane symbols, he understood the dark reality. The celestial event was not a herald of salvation, but a doorway for these entities to infiltrate reality, to transform it into a realm of their design. The revelation was a blow, striking him with the ferocity of a storm. His traumatic past intertwined with this newfound horror, the memories of a whirlwind chaos reflecting in the impending cosmic catastrophe. And yet, in the face of this overwhelming dread, his resolve solidified. He had to expose the alien influence and prevent the catastrophic transformation of their world. But his activities had not gone unnoticed. As he exited the hidden room, he was met with the stern gazes of the school's headmaster and the town's wealthy patrons. The confrontation was unsettling, their eyes gleaming with an inhuman glow. He knew he had exposed himself to a danger that was far from ordinary. Under the cerulean glow of an ethereal moon, Danbury pulsed with an alien heartbeat. The calm townscape was now an eerie tableau of unspoken dread and surreal anticipation. The specter of the impending celestial event loomed over every alley, every house, every soul, its ghostly pallor reflected in their eyes. Even as the world slept, the alien influence began to transform the very fabric of their reality. In the solitary confines of his room, Morgan wrestled with the immensity of his findings. His dreams were a cosmic ballet, resounding with unspeakable horrors and celestial secrets that defied the human perception of reality. Each morning, he awoke breathless, his thoughts echoing with the alien tongue, a testament to their growing influence. In the eyes of the townsfolk, he saw reflections of his own nightmares. Their transformation was subtle, their humanity being eroded to accommodate the alien presence. He knew he had to act. Driven by a selfless loyalty to safeguard the world, he set out to rally the unaffected townsfolk. He articulated the looming catastrophe, hoping to break their strange spell. He told tales of the wealthy patrons, the hidden symbols, the alien tongue, and the catastrophic celestial event. However, his words were met with disbelief and scorn. His credibility as a retired detective failed him, and his warnings were dismissed as a madman's rant. Despite this, he refused to relent. He had seen the eye of a storm before and had survived its brutal onslaught. The courage he found in his trauma fueled his resolve. His mind echoed with a singular thought: to thwart the catastrophic celestial event. As the days spiraled towards the anticipated event, he could see the transformation of the townsfolk escalating. Their once familiar faces now appeared as grotesque distortions, their bodies bending and twisting to accommodate an alien form. It was a chilling sight that hardened his determination. Alone, he decided to confront the town's elite at the school, hoping to disrupt their communion with the alien species. Beneath the star-spangled canvas of the night, the elite of Danbury convened within the school, their silhouette a grotesque dance of shadows. The clock tower's bell tolled an alien dirge, its reverberations rippling through the fabric of reality. Morgan's heart was pounding with a grim determination as he ventured into this epicenter of the anomaly, akin to a lone ship sailing into a tempest. As he navigated through the dimly lit corridors, he could feel the air thickening with an alien energy. The murmur of the gathering echoed down the hallways, their voices a chilling chant that tugged at the corners of his sanity. As he drew closer, he saw the patrons standing in a circle, their bodies convulsed in an unsettling rhythm, their voices raising in a chorus that resonated with the pulse of the universe. The cosmic dance was mesmerizing, terrible, and beautiful. A feeling of déjà vu gripped him, his past trauma of surviving a tornado reflecting in this cosmic maelstrom. He knew this was the moment to intervene. With a defiant cry, he rushed towards the circle, his voice raised against the celestial cacophony. However, his efforts were in vain. The patrons barely acknowledged his presence, their consciousness ensnared by the alien pull. The starry vortex pulsed violently, the maw of an interstellar beast ready to swallow their reality. Just as the maelstrom was about to consume the world, Morgan did the unthinkable. He threw himself into the vortex, his body a final barrier between the invading entities in their world. His presence disturbed the cosmic balance, the vortex convulsing in retaliation. His senses were assaulted by a barrage of alien thoughts. His very existence stretched and pulled into unimaginable dimensions. He did not resist. He offered himself to the cosmic storm, his sacrifice an attempt to restore balance. He felt the torment of 1,000 stars, the cold embrace of the void, the searing pain of reality torn asunder, and then a sudden calm. His existence dissolved into the cosmic ether, his final thoughts echoing a silent prayer for the world he had vowed to protect. As dawn arrived, the school was eerily silent. The wealthy patrons, disconnected from their alien puppeteer, fell to the ground, dazed and disoriented. The rift had vanished, leaving behind an echo of cosmic horror. The townsfolk, free from their otherworldly trance, woke up to a day that dawned normally, their alien memories fading like a bad dream. In the aftermath, the world moved on, carrying a faint scar of the cosmic anomaly. The school was deserted, its bells silenced, its classrooms vacant. The town's elite retreated from the public eye, their zeal replaced with a quiet remorse. Morgan was remembered as a madman, his warnings seen as the delusions of an unstable mind. Only the elite knew the truth of his sacrifice, but they held their silence, the reality too terrifying to accept. The pallid glow of a desolate morning light seeped through the threadbare curtains of Arthur Wells' study, illuminating the room in spectral hues. The walls, papered in countless newspaper clippings, bore silent witness to a lifetime of chasing truths hidden in shadows. It was here, amidst the musk of decaying newsprint and the spectral dance of dust and sunbeams, that Arthur first stumbled upon the whisper of a secret, his heart beating a rhythm akin to a moth drawn to an insidious flame. A faded yellow piece of newsprint clung tenuously to the corkboard, bearing the title, Fairfield's Hidden Depths. It spoke of hushed rumors surrounding the Fairfield Mall, whispered tales of strange happenings and uncanny occurrences. There was something intriguingly sinister about the way the words twisted around an enigma, sparking his dormant curiosity. Arthritis protested as he rose, his body a relic of a bygone era, echoing the battles waged against life's incessant onslaughts. Memories of his past danced in his mind like ephemeral phantoms, the ghosts of his schizophrenia that once tormented him with a cacophony of voices now rendered mute by the march of time. He looked at the photograph on his desk, a memento of love lost and estrangement found, a testament to a relationship in desperate need of mending. Venturing outside, he found himself in the heart of the city that had been the backdrop of his turbulent life. He came across a vagrant, shivering in the chill, huddled in an alleyway. A lesser man might have continued onward, but his generous heart reached into his pocket, offering the last of his loose change to the figure. A dialogue was born, a humbling reminder of shared humanity, their words carving out the beginnings of an unexpected friendship in the canvas of urban indifference. Arthur mentioned Fairfield, the mall, and the rumors. The vagrant's eyes widened in recognition. "I've heard them talk, sir," he began, his voice a raspy melody in the cold air. "The homeless disappear, lights flicker, and folks, they hear things, whispers when the hour grows late." His words hung heavy between them, adding substance to the rumors Arthur had dismissed as idle chatter. A knot twisted in his stomach, a grim premonition threading itself through the fabric of his resolve. Back in his study, the room seemed to have grown colder, the shadows deeper. As he replayed the vagrant's words, a sense of unease seeped into him like a slow brewing storm of dread. There was something more to Fairfield, something that sat nestled beneath the everyday facade of consumerism and rushed suburban lives. He decided to uncover the truth buried within the whispers and silence. His heart pulsed with a sense of purpose, a persistent rhythm in the silent song of impending mystery. Fairfield emerged on the horizon like a well-worn memory, its familiar facade belying the enigma that lurked beneath. As Arthur disembarked from the rattling bus, he felt an unnerving sense of dislocation. It was as if he had stepped into a landscape that existed somewhere between the folds of reality and the shadowy abyss of the unknown. The town, a quaint mixture of old-world charm and modern monotony, wore its everyday mask well. But Arthur, with his journalist's instincts, could feel the undercurrent of unease. The streets seemed to whisper, their voices blending with the faint rustle of autumn leaves. and the sun cast long, eerie shadows that seemed to distort familiar structures into twisted caricatures. Inexplicably, he felt a sense of recognition towards these alien streets, as if they were old friends, long forgotten. His troubled mind, once the theater of schizophrenic hallucinations, shivered in recognition. He wondered if this was the silent resurgence of his disorder, or if it was the town itself, whispering secrets directly into his consciousness. He found his steps leading him towards a coffee shop, where he sat at a window table, its glass streaked with trails of forgotten rain. The waitress, a girl barely out of her teens with a sunshine smile, greeted him warmly. Arthur offered her a photograph of the woman from his desk. Her sunny demeanor faltered as she studied the image, an echo of familiarity flickering in her eyes. "That's Miss Helen, isn't it? Used to come here all the time. But I haven't seen her around lately." Her words hung in the air, a phantom hinting at the edges of his broken relationship, pushing him further into the heart of this mystery. In a low voice, heavy with the weight of secrets, he queried about the mall. A shiver passed through the waitress, her face paling. "Things aren't right around that place," she admitted. "I had a friend who worked there. She said there were noises after dark, like whispers, and then she went missing. No one knows what happened to her." As he thanked the girl and left the diner, Arthur could feel the town's veneer crack further, revealing glimpses of a cosmic dance between mundane life and an otherworldly rhythm. The whispers of his schizophrenia meshed with the whispers of Fairfield, creating a chilling symphony that echoed in the caverns of his mind. As the day gave way to night, the lights of Fairfield flickered, casting the town in a spectral glow. His mission was far from over, the whispers of the town stirring within him, urging him to venture further into the abyss. The following day arrived, shrouded in a veil of a chilly morning fog. He stood before Fairfield Mall, its imposing facade offering a stark contrast to the quaint charm of the surrounding town. The structure seemed to loom ominously, a leviathan rising from the depths of mundanity, hinting at the unfathomable secrets hidden within its belly. The mall teemed with life, the hustle and bustle of shoppers, creating an effective smokescreen for the undercurrent of fear that ran like a silent river beneath the surface. The sights and sounds of consumerism echoed off the sterile walls, but beneath it, Arthur could sense an elusive hum, an alien rhythm like the steady heartbeat of a sleeping giant. An odd-looking store at the far corner of the mall caught his eye. A sense of misplaced nostalgia washed over him as he entered. The walls were lined with an eclectic mix of artifacts, relics that seemed too ancient and out of place amidst the mundane offerings of a suburban mall. A janitor, old and bent, his face weathered like an ancient parchment, was meticulously cleaning a strange object. Arthur approached him, the weight of his mission heavy in his heart. "Have you worked here long?" he began, his voice steady. The janitor paused, sizing Arthur up with his rheumy eyes before responding. "Long enough to know that things aren't always as they seem around here." The conversation that unfolded was a strange dance between reality and the abstract. The janitor's cryptic words painting a picture of strange occurrences, disappearing night shift workers, and unsettling noises when the moon reigned supreme. The janitor, with a glance that echoed countless secrets, pointed Arthur toward a seemingly ordinary part of the mall, a section dedicated to antiquated books. Arthur thanked the man, his heart pulsating with a strange mix of dread and anticipation, feeling his journey threading deeper into the labyrinth of uncertainty. In the bookstore, he found a myriad of forgotten tales, but one book, hidden away in the darkest corner, beckoned him. An old text cryptically titled "The Nexus of Shadows" seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly energy. As he leafed through the ancient pages, he felt the pulse of an eldritch heartbeat echoing in the hollows of his mind. Strange symbols and alien languages danced before his eyes, the book seemingly alive, whispering secrets of a cosmic horror that lay dormant beneath the mall. His mind began to teeter on the edge of reality, his past hallucinations resurfacing, merging with the cosmic dread that was beginning to take root in his psyche. As he made his way out of the bookstore, the mall seemed to morph, reality itself distorting as if seen through a warped mirror. His journey was far from over. He knew he had only just begun to pull back the veil of normalcy, revealing the writhing shadows of a cosmic horror hidden beneath. He stood on the brink, the echoes from the abyss growing louder, enticing him to plunge deeper into the heart of the cosmic enigma. The moon, a spectral orb in the Stygian canvas of the night, cast an uncanny glow over Fairfield as Arthur once again found himself at the Leviathan's maw, the entrance of the mall. Now shrouded in darkness, the mall was a ghost of its bustling daytime self, the labyrinth within sleeping yet pulsating with an alien rhythm. Armed with little more than his steely determination, he breached the echoing silence, stepping into the hollow shell of the mall. The air hung heavy with an electric anticipation, as if the very building itself was holding its breath, waiting for the seeds of cosmic revelation to sprout in the garden of mortal understanding. Through the dimly lit corridors, past the familiar faces of storefronts locked behind iron grates, he navigated towards the bookstore. The once comforting scent of old books now carried an undercurrent of dread, the hushed whispers of forgotten tales, seemingly louder in the pressing silence. His eyes, drawn by an invisible force, fell upon a bookcase, inconspicuous yet somehow separate from the mundane. With a press against the oak, the bookcase yielded, revealing a hidden passageway. He stepped into the shadowy corridor, the weight of 1,000 untold secrets pressing against his shoulders. The narrow path unraveled into a sprawling labyrinth, humming with an unsettling resonance that echoed within the vaults of his mind. A door at the end of the labyrinthine passage stood as a silent sentinel, leading into the forbidden recesses of the secret laboratory. Inside, he was met with a chilling tableau of science and madness. Strange, whirring machinery, grotesque sketches of unnatural beings, and most disturbingly, walls etched with the same symbols he'd found in the nexus of shadows. His heart pounded in his chest as the horrific implications began to take root, the whispers of his schizophrenia merging with the terrifying reality unfurling before him. He felt the familiar shroud of his past terror unfurling, threatening to engulf him. But his bravery stemmed the tide. A janitor, the same one from the store, appeared from the shadows, his face ghostly in the flickering light. His words, laden with resigned dread, spoke of an ancient entity, an ageless horror waiting to be awakened. The cryptic revelations plunged Arthur into the chilling reality of the cosmic horror lurking beneath the everyday life of Fairfield, his own reality fracturing under the weight of this revelation. Leaving the clandestine horrors of the laboratory behind, Arthur re-emerged into the desolate mall. The everyday was no longer a refuge, but a thin veneer concealing the cosmic horror beneath. His once cherished sense of normalcy was replaced with a profound dread, yet he remained undeterred. As he stood on the precipice of his terrifying discovery, he was aware that the next phase of his journey would not only challenge his sanity, but his very understanding of reality itself. His brave spirit, the final vestige of his crumbling sanity, was the only thing that stood between him and the awaiting void of the cosmic unknown. Days turned into nights, and the nights into harrowing echoes of the truth Arthur now carried within him. Fairfield, bathed in the harsh, artificial glow of street lamps, became a ghost town haunted by the ever-looming shadow of cosmic horror. The murmuring breeze whispered tales of the approaching storm, the impending awakening of the ancient evil. He found himself once again at the secret entrance of the lab, where the frail boundary between reality and the unimaginable seemed to tremble. The janitor was there, a twisted Virgil guiding him through this Dantean underworld. His rheumy eyes held a glimmer of sorrow as he passed Arthur an aged document, a parting gift before melting back into the shadows. The parchment crackled under his touch, revealing a ritual, a rite of passage into the cosmic unknown. It was a testament of surrender, an invitation to join the undulating dance of the universe. As he read the archaic words, reality seemed to tremble around him, his senses drowned in a sea of cosmic horror, his past hallucinations paling in comparison to the spectral tableau unfolding before his eyes. Images of indescribable entities, colossal and terrifying, writhed in the shadowy corners of his mind, the mundane world becoming a distant dream. Yet Arthur did not recoil. Instead, he felt an unspeakable resolve, a sense of purpose emanating from the heart of his terror. He thought of his trauma, his years battling the specters of his mind, and his desperate attempt to mend the broken bonds with his wife. Each piece of his life seemed insignificant in isolation, but together they composed the key to his understanding of the cosmic horror. With the echoes of the abyss resounding in his ears, he spoke the final words of the ritual. Time seemed to shudder, reality splitting at its seams as a terrifying presence manifested, an ancient entity rising from the shadowy depths. The mall, Fairfield, and even the earth itself seemed infinitesimal, swallowed by the cosmic expanse of the entity. But rather than fear, Arthur felt an unsettling peace. His past trauma, the ghost of his schizophrenia, and the gnawing dread of the cosmic unknown fused together, reframing his understanding of existence. In the face of this cosmic horror, he found an unlikely ally, a partner in the grand cosmic dance of the universe. His reality shattered, replaced by an infinite, terrifying panorama of alien dimensions and unspeakable entities. He did not resist. Instead, he embraced the void, his being merging with the cosmic entity. He became a part of the universal orchestra, a note in the symphony of cosmic horror. The world of Fairfield continued in its seemingly mundane cycle, oblivious to the cosmic dread beneath its surface. But Arthur, now a part of something greater, remained, a silent guardian in the dance of the universe, forever caught in the haunting embrace of the void. Hamden, Connecticut, was a town that held time captive. It was as though the hands of the clock slowed in their tireless dance when they reached this pocket of the world. Maple and oak trees lined the cobblestone streets, their leaves rustling in whispered secrets as John Sullivan tread upon their fallen brethren. John was a stolid figure, aged but not defeated, wrinkles etching stories into his face. He carried the specter of his past illness with quiet dignity. Each labored breath he drew a testament to his enduring will. His motivation was one of revenge, a slow-burning fire kindled in the face of personal violation. In this anachronistic haven, he was a seeker of truth amidst the enigma of mundane thefts plaguing Hamden's antique shops. A puzzle that invited him, taunted him, whispered cryptic riddles into the depths of his quietude. "Sullivan," nodded Sheriff Davies, a robust man in his 50s who carried the scent of tobacco and old paper. "Davies," John greeted, his voice soft, almost drowned by the rustle of the ancient trees. They stood in front of the Occult Obscura, a curious antique shop holding mysteries that seemed to tremble on the precipice of the unknown. Inside, a labyrinth of relics and artworks from eras bygone sprawled, their value seemingly lost on local thieves. Amongst the quaint disorder, Richard Montague, the owner, shuffled. His wiry frame echoed an almost unsettling enthusiasm, a paradox within the confines of dust and shadowy nostalgia. "Ah, Mr. Sullivan," he exclaimed, with a voice that crackled like dry leaves underfoot. Come, see what they've taken this time." John examined the empty display case, studying the vacant velvet pillow and a postcard-sized painting beside it depicting cryptic symbols. There was a strange sense of familiarity about it, a resonance that prickled the remnants of his trauma. He picked up the painting, his gloved fingers tracing the ancient pigments. "And what does this signify?" he asked, his gaze still locked on the eerie symbols. Richard shrugged. "Couldn't say, but it's the same symbol found on all the stolen artifacts." A frisson of realization traveled through John. The case was no longer a mundane investigation, but an unsettling knot waiting to be unfurled. Hamden's quaint charm began to shroud a sinister intrigue. He found himself peering not merely into the abyss of petty thefts, but into the Stygian depths of a puzzle connected to the shadows of his past. As night unfurled its ebony wings over Hamden, it brought a languid serenity that played a deceitful lullaby, hiding the disquiet that brewed beneath. John Sullivan, in the confines of his rented room, found himself engrossed in the symbolism that had stirred the echoes of his past. In this dance of darkness and light, he pursued an unwelcome wraith of memories, feeling the lacerations of his past beginning to bleed into his investigation. He found himself returning to the occult obscura next morning, a moth drawn to the flickering flame of its mysteries. Richard greeted him with an enthusiasm unscathed by the threat of thefts, an unsettling contrast in the growing tension. "Morning, Mr. Sullivan. Seeking more mysteries?" His eyes crinkled with amusement as he leaned across the counter. John nodded, placing the tiny painting with the symbols on the counter. "Could use your help." Richard studied the symbols, his gaze turning distant. He led John towards a hidden back room, a sanctuary filled with even more peculiar artifacts. Cobweb-veiled tomes, decaying tapestries embroidered with cryptic patterns, and moth-eaten maps with labyrinthine layouts adorned the room. "You see, Mr. Sullivan, most artifacts here were donated by the Ordinis Noctis," Richard divulged, his tone almost reverent. John raised an eyebrow. "The Night Order?" Richard nodded, opening a ledger with yellowing pages that recorded transactions of strange curios. "A secretive cult, they say, but generous patrons to my shop." A wave of disquiet washed over John as he made the connections. His investigation into the mundane had ushered him into the realm of the surreal. The Night Order might have been an odd key to the lock of cryptic symbols. In the quiet hours of the afternoon, Hamden started revealing its secrets, every revelation an invitation to a deeper layer of the enigma. He found himself caught in the gravitational pull of the mystery, as if some cosmic force were guiding him towards a truth he was destined to discover. By the time night once again claimed dominion, he found himself on the precipice of an abyss. The further he delved into the mystery, the darker the shadows became. Unbeknownst to him, he was no longer merely dealing with art dealers and petty thieves, but becoming entangled in a complex web of cosmic proportions that reached far beyond the confines of Hamden. Through the veiled curtains of morning fog, John strode towards a clandestine location Richard had disclosed. A dilapidated church on the outskirts of Hamden, a forgotten monument rumored to house the meetings of the Night Order. As he ambled, the shadows of the previous day seeped into his consciousness, intertwining with the spectral tendrils of his own haunting past. Yet his flame of resolve remained undimmed. The church was a grotesque silhouette against the morning sky, its decay a testament to time's remorseless erosion. An uncanny aura pulsated around it, as if reality thinned within its confines. Guided by a foreboding, he slipped inside its forsaken nave, the scent of damp earth and forgotten prayers permeating the air. In the heart of the church, where the pulpit once held court, he found an altar of stone engraved with the same cryptic symbols that had started his descent into this abyss. The eerie stillness was broken by the subtle vibration of the stone, a resonation that seeped into his bones and stirred the familiar dread within him. Clandestinely observing a ceremony later that night, the veil of normalcy was finally lifted, revealing the terrifying reality of the travelers. He saw the stolen artifacts arranged meticulously around the altar. The gathered members of the Ordinis Noctis chanted an ancient mantra, their voices reverberating off the cold stone walls, creating a haunting symphony of invocation. From the center of this arcane configuration, a distortion formed. The air rippled, and the fabric of reality seemed to stretch, to welcome the beings from the other side. They emerged, figures that defied comprehension, their forms oscillating between dimensions, their presence causing a cacophony of senses. Witnessing the manifestation, the abstract concept of cosmic horror was no longer as abstract. It was a tangible entity that stole his breath, turned his blood to ice, and threatened to fracture his sanity. As he retreated from the accursed church, he carried with him not just the weight of this revelation, but also the burdens of his past. He realized his past trauma, his battle with his illness, had inadvertently made him a conduit for this dark saga. But this revelation was not a conclusion. Instead, it opened a portal to a realm of further trials and tribulations. The frail reality of Hamden had been usurped by an overwhelming cosmic horror, and John Sullivan found himself at the helm of this terrifying voyage. The veil of reality, once assumed to be steadfast and immutable, had slipped from his grasp, leaving him standing on the precipice of an abyss so deep, so vast, that it threatened to consume him. Hamden, once a picturesque town of antiquity, had morphed into a nightmarish landscape. Every antique shop held sinister implications, every artifact a potential vessel for these ethereal horrors. However, the growing dread didn't deter him. Instead, it kindled his burning spirit of defiance. Plagued by his turbulent past and the terrifying present, he found himself returning to the forsaken church, armed with a desperate plan to thwart the Ordines Noctis. His every step echoed in the stone-cold silence of the looming edifice, a chilling symphony of defiance and despair. He arrived in the midst of their ceremony, his entrance drawing gasps of surprise from the cult members. A confrontation ensued, each word echoing the horrors of the travelers, revealing their sinister intentions of using humanity as mere vessels for their cosmic, insatiable desires. As the confrontation drew to its end, the members initiated a forced ritual, aiming to summon another of their kind. The unholy symphony of their chant filled the air as the altar began to resonate. John, in a desperate act, disrupted the ritualistic pattern of the artifacts. Reality convulsed. An eldritch traveler, only partially manifested, writhed in the chaos. Its form, an amorphous paradox, wavered in the rippling air, its very existence a discordant melody in the symphony of reality. The sight was a revelation to John, exposing the true nature of the travelers, entities thriving on the sanity of mortals, leaving behind hollow husks devoid of life. The shock of the spectacle brought the ceremony to a halt. Seizing the moment, John made his escape, carrying with him the stark understanding of the travelers and their cosmic atrocities. He had stared into the void and emerged forever scarred, but he also bore an even stronger resolve. He ventured once more into the decrepit church, the eerie silence of the ancient structure punctuated by the echoes of the cult's macabre practices. He began to rearrange the artifacts, disrupting the symbols, inverting the ritual to close the dimensional rift. As he manipulated the ritual's focal point, reality warped, twisted, pulsed around him. The spectral tendrils of the otherworldly dimension clawed at the edges of the church, seeking to maintain their grip. However, his grim determination served as an anchor, steadying him against the cosmic turbulence. With the final adjustments made, he initiated the reversal. The symphony of unreality erupted. The veil between the dimensions quivered and then began to mend. The rift, once a gaping wound in the fabric of reality, shrank, tearing the partially manifested traveler away and back into its realm of chaos. In the aftermath, the church stood silent once more, an ordinary relic of the past, the echoes of its otherworldly visitors forever silenced. John emerged, a silhouette etched against the frail morning light, a man changed by his transcendental journey. Bristol, Connecticut lay sprawled beneath the cloak of night, a town in the hold of ancient secrets and quiet dread. A placid veil of normalcy hung over its time-worn rooftops and cobblestone streets, barely concealing the undercurrents of unease that ran like cold rivulets through its veins. In the heart of this town, like a shadow veiled in darkness, stood the mortician's office, a structure seeping with the muted whispers of the deceased. Detective Samuel Pike, a middle-aged sentinel, stood in the cold embrace of the dawn, his gaze fixated on the solemn edifice. Each cobblestone that lined the path to the mortician's office was a footprint in time, etched with countless stories of silent farewells and reluctant acceptance. Yet beneath the melancholy surface lurked an ominous aura, one that the town seemed to deny or perhaps chose to ignore. Samuel was a stoic man, etched with lines of experience. A survivor of a torrential flood, he was no stranger to adversity, having wrestled with it more times than he cared to recall. Those tumultuous waters had left their mark on him, a quiet resilience in his eyes, a steadfastness in his stance. But with the resilience came an insatiable need to return a favor, a debt of life owed to the man now enshrouded in suspicions. The morning air was sharp, slicing through his overcoat and nipping at his skin. He found his way to the local diner, a quaint establishment nestled among rows of antiquated shops. As he made his way to a corner booth, he crossed paths with Millie, the waitress. "Morning, Sam," Millie greeted, her voice as warm as the coffee she poured. "Morning, Millie," he returned, his voice barely above a whisper. He rarely spoke, yet when he did, his words carried weight, bearing the wisdom of a man who'd seen and endured far beyond his years. Millie knew him well enough to not pry, but curiosity eventually got the better of her. "What brings you back here, Sam?" she inquired, her gaze laden with a mix of concern and intrigue. "I owe someone a debt, Millie," he replied, a shadow of a smile creeping onto his weathered face. He paused, briefly caught in the rivulets of his past. "The mortician, he pulled me from the flood, saved my life." A hush fell over the diner, a silence so profound it almost echoed. The coffee in the pot stopped pouring, the clatter of silverware halted. A chilling realization swept over Millie as she connected the dots. Samuel Pike was back, not as a survivor, but as a debt-ridden detective on a quest for truth. The sun lowered its gaze over the little town of Bristol as the crisp night began to unfurl its cloak, stitching the sky with stars. The mortician's office, previously benign under the sun's scrutiny, now assumed an ominous countenance under the eerie moonlight. Its facade, a morbid tableau of darkened windows and Gothic accents, whispered tales of the departed and their lingering secrets. Pike stood at the threshold, the edifice reflecting in his stony gaze. The disquiet that had been brooding within him surged as he crossed the threshold, stepping into a world where death was not an end, but a transitory phase, the beginning of something altogether more obscure. The mortician, a man called Edgar Hart, was a figure as enigmatic as the establishment he ran. Under the unflinching fluorescence of the operating room, his eyes seemed to harbor the cold sheen of steel, his hands moving with a practiced ease that belied the gravity of his work. His presence was as unsettling as it was hypnotic, a deadly waltz between the human and the divine, between life and the world beyond. "Detective Pike," Hart greeted, his voice a disconcerting harmony of warmth and frost. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Edgar," Pike replied, the shadows of the room embedding themselves in his voice. "I am here on a matter of financial concern." A flicker of intrigue, swiftly concealed, danced across Hart's eyes. Pike couldn't shake off the chill that slithered down his spine as Hart escorted him to his office. It was a room that bore the scent of decay masked by formaldehyde, its walls lined with funerary artifacts, odd trinkets, and books with cryptic symbols on their weathered spines. "Strange books for a mortician," Pike noted aloud, his fingers grazing the cryptic symbols, their meanings resonating within him like an unstruck chord. "Perhaps," Hart conceded, a grim smile twisting his lips, "or perhaps fitting, considering our constant dance with the beyond." As their conversation wove itself around money trails and hushed whispers, Pike noticed a vial nestled among the aged parchment and cryptic literature. A sinister-looking liquid swirled within it, its label bearing the name Eidolon. Sensing his interest, Hart swiftly pocketed the vial, but not before Pike noted his peculiarly manicured hands, stained a peculiar shade of pallor. "We deal with more than just the physical remains of the departed, detective," Hart confessed, an unsettling satisfaction in his voice. Pike, struck by the vague foreboding in his words, looked deeper into his eyes. Beyond the facade of calm, he discerned a hint of turmoil, a reflection of his own disquiet. The night matured outside the mortician's office, its whispers carrying tales of clandestine activities and a dark deity yet unknown. Pike stepped back into the moonlit night, the echoes of Hart's voice still ringing in his ears. The fragments of his investigation were forming an image, blurry and horrifying in its implications. Bristol was no longer the quiet town Pike remembered. A veil of dread hung thick, transforming the once familiar into something grotesque and unfamiliar. Shadows twisted into spectral figures, whispers of the wind metamorphosed into ominous chants. The fear was palpable, a fetid stench in the air, leaving no corner untouched. Bristol had become a town on the brink of a descent, a plunge into the abyss of a nightmare it was yet to fully comprehend. He found himself entangled in the suffocating tendrils of this growing dread. The mortician's office, the vial of Eidolon and Hart's unsettling satisfaction, swirled around him like a whirlpool of unease, sucking him deeper into its malevolent center. He felt the echo of the flood. He was a man on the precipice, facing a torrent not of water this time, but of insanity. His solitary dwelling offered no respite. Each evening he returned to a disquiet that clung to his home, spectral forms darting at the edges of his vision, elusive and persistent. The sounds of Bristol's nocturnal life transformed into discordant whispers, their tone imbued with an undercurrent of hysteria, adding an eerie cadence to the night's symphony. One night, as he sat in his dimly lit study, an incessant knocking pulled him from his thoughts. Upon opening the door, he was met by Millie's anxious gaze, her usual jovial demeanor replaced by an expression of deep concern. "Sam," she stuttered, her voice quivering, "I've seen things I can't explain." He invited her in, his gaze never leaving the anxious lines etched onto her face. As Millie wove her tale, a narrative of shadows, chance, and growing fear, Pike couldn't help but draw parallels with his own experiences. She spoke of townsfolk behaving erratically, of hushed whispers regarding the mortician's office, and of eidolon, a term she had overheard but couldn't understand. Pike felt a chill sweep over him. It seemed the eidolon was slowly permeating through the town, seeping into the minds of its dwellers. The unseen entity that he'd brushed off as the result of a strained mind was materializing into a palpable horror. His resolve wavered, but his spirit refused to buckle. He was reminded of the flood, the struggle against a relentless adversary, and the victory he had clawed from its cruel grasp. As Millie left, he sat in the solitude of his study, enveloped by the dark tide of revelations. His gaze fell on a picture of Bristol taken years ago, a town untouched by cosmic horror, alive with the vibrancy of innocence and blissful ignorance. It seemed like a lifetime away, a paradise lost to an encroaching darkness. As the night whispered tales of terror and the deity, Pike knew his voyage had reached a point of no return. He was treading uncharted waters, the tide of insanity threatening to engulf the town and possibly his very mind. The faint glow of dawn found Pike in the cryptic labyrinth of the mortician's office, the echo of Millie's revelation still reverberating in his mind. Hart, the silent conductor of this morbid orchestra, was absent, the echo of his presence resonating in the cold, sterile halls. This hollow tranquility afforded Pike an opportunity he had been seeking, a closer encounter with the vial of eidolon. Sequestered amongst ancient texts and veiled in deceptive normality, the eidolon lay in wait. He cautiously lifted the vial, its contents seemingly alive, swirling and twisting as if it possessed a consciousness of its own. With the courage of one who has stared into the abyss and lived, he uncorked the vial, the sweet metallic scent of the elixir filling his senses. Compelled by an instinct he neither understood nor questioned, he partook of the elixir, the taste of eternity dissolving on his tongue. An explosion of sensation overwhelmed him, his perception broadening, blurring the lines between reality and the beyond. He felt his mind extend, reaching towards the corners of the cosmos he didn't know existed, touching the fabric of a reality hidden beneath the superficiality of the physical world. Time unraveled, seconds stretching into eternities, realities unfolding like the petals of a cosmic bloom. In this transcendent state, he perceived the deity, an entity that pulsed with unspeakable power, a darkness deeper than the black between stars. He witnessed its insidious influence on the town, saw the minds of Bristol's inhabitants ensnared in its intoxicating grip. The deity whispered tales of cosmic dimensions, of powers older than the universe itself, and of its eternal hunger for fear and despair. It was a siren call to oblivion, beautiful and horrifying. Despite the onslaught of the deity's influence, he found a part of him untouched by its taint, a core of steel forged in the crucible of the flood's devastation. This remnant of his untainted self reminded him of his purpose, the debt he owed, and the brave man he had become in the wake of trauma. Upon his return to the corporeal world, the memories of his journey lingered like ghostly echoes. The town of Bristol was no longer a quaint settlement in his eyes, but a stage for an ancient entity's macabre play. He emerged from the experience with a sense of dread, yet with a renewed determination. The deity may have left a lasting scar on his consciousness, but it also forged a resolve within him, a resolution to expose the mortician's deeds and prevent the entity from continuing to feast on their fears. The echoes of Eidolon still hummed in his veins, a grim reminder of his ordeal. He had ventured into the abyss and returned, forever changed. The deity may have been an abhorrent, otherworldly horror, but it was a horror that now had a face, a name. Pike knew his battle was far from over. This was his fight, his storm to weather. As the dust swallowed the day, he steeled himself for the coming tide, one that would test not just his sanity, but the very fabric of his existence. The night buzzed with an electric tension, a precursor to the climax of the cosmic opera that had seized the town in its eldritch grip. The deity's hunger echoed through the town, every shadow pulsating with its insatiable desire. Pike felt it, a gnawing dread in his bones, an unspeakable terror that his journey was nearing its crescendo. Equipped with the harrowing knowledge obtained from Eidolon, he made his way to the mortician's office. The familiar Gothic facade, once merely unsettling, was now a monolith of cosmic horror. But beneath the fear, a spark of determination had been kindled within him, refusing to be extinguished by the suffocating dread. Inside, the office was a tomb of hidden horrors, each artifact, each cryptic book echoing the deity's insidious call. He found Hart in his usual place, the mortician's face an unsettling canvas of fascination and fear. Their confrontation was a dance of wills, a symphony of dread and defiance played out in hushed whispers and fiery gazes. "I know about Eidolon, Edgar," Pike confessed, the words tasting like bitter iron on his tongue. The room fell into a palpable silence, a silence that bore the weight of unspoken horrors and clandestine dealings. Hart's eyes, cold steel under the harsh fluorescence, bore into Pike, their gaze locked in a battle of dominance. Hart's lips curled into a grotesque smile, his voice low but laden with the echo of cosmic horrors. "You've tasted the forbidden fruit then," he said, his words dancing on the border of wonder and madness. "You've heard the deity's song, felt its power. It's intoxicating, isn't it?" Pike held Hart's gaze, the flicker of fear in his eyes the only indication of his internal struggle. "The deity is a parasite, Edgar, feeding on our fears, manipulating us. We are not its disciples, but its victims," Pike retorted, his voice echoing his unwavering resolve. The tension in the room reached a fever pitch, the air throbbing with an energy that seemed to pulse in time with the deity's insatiable hunger. Pike felt the deity's shadow creep up on him, its icy fingers teasing the edge of his sanity, but he steeled himself against its intrusion. And then, in the grand crescendo of the night, Pike ran. He fled from the mortician's office, away from Hart's manic laughter, from the entity's oppressive shadow. Bristol awoke to a dawn that held no comfort, its morning sun casting long, grotesque shadows that continued to pulse with the deity's hunger. Pike had escaped, but the cosmic horror remained, an inescapable reality that had woven itself into the fabric of the town. His consciousness was forever marred by the entity's touch, its presence a phantom pain that would continue to haunt him. In the grand scheme of cosmic horror, he realized, one could never truly escape. They could only endure, gather their shattered sanity, and brace themselves for the next encounter. The dance of man and cosmic horror would continue, an endless waltz to the tune of insanity and resilience. We appreciate you tuning in. If you fancied the content, show your support with a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to keep up with our eerie adventures. Eldritch Tales Factory has plenty more to offer. Until next time.